Good afternoon. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we're going to do our chart lesson for this will be for Friday, January. I believe today is January the 6th, and we're going to do our chart lesson for today. And it's a pretty interesting day. For the first full week back, we continue to really just chop around in this same. I'm going to back out here where you can kind of see. We've kind of been in this area from about 1260 to 1280 or something ever since the first of the year. We've really gone nowhere. And so you need to be aware of those areas. I would have those areas drawn on these highs drawn on my chart around 1280, and I'd have my line down here around 1250 or so where the lows tend to be, 1250, 1260, because when we get there, you're probably going to get a bounce. But today, I want to show you something. Why I'm always watching these support and resistance areas. Look what we had yesterday. This was the support and resistance from yesterday afternoon. So if you had that on your chart already, look what happened today. Now this was in the overnight. So sometimes you just have to kind of ignore that. This was in the overnight. But look what happened during the regular session with the same support and resistance. There was resistance in the afternoon, pretty much most of the day. Yesterday, it actually held in the overnight as well. And here was the resistance. This was support yesterday, and this is resistance. I think I said resistance down here. But this is support. This is resistance. And so it was easy to know where these were from yesterday. So just leave your lines on your chart and see how they affect today. And you can see what happened. Once we got into the regular session today, where'd my line go? For some reason, my line is disappearing on me there. But anyway, some kind of bug in the software there. My line keeps going away. But if you had those two lines on there, look what you could have done today. You know where there's a good chance it's going to bounce, and at the very least, you're going to get a pullback. It might only be a couple bars like this right here, and then you might go higher, but you're going to get a pullback. Sometimes it'll look like this. So you can generally sell these areas blindly with a couple points stop, just in case it does go through like it did right here. But I can tell you right what all that was right there. That was a stop run during the overnight. You see how that gapped, well, it didn't gap, but it shot up, kind of rocketed up. That's where all the stops were from the people that were short from yesterday afternoon. They got short right here during the overnight when there's not a lot of volume and so forth. They ran that up there, and you can see that they had a hard time getting through there. But look what happened when they got through there. They hit those stops. It rocketed up, but it wasn't long. It sold off, and we were right back in the range. But by the time the regular market opened, the same range from yesterday, right across here, look at here, it held. And then when we got back up here, the same range from right across here yesterday, all these people that realized they got stopped out by a stop running, they're back in here loading up again. And so that wall, you got to kind of sometimes overlook the overnight stuff as far as support and resistance, and because that's what they do. There's not much volume, and it's easier for them to break it through there, and they run it up there. They run all those stops, and then by the time the market opens back up, prices are way down here. So all they did was stop these people out, trap a bunch of new longs, and then they sell it off again. So if you didn't do anything but wait on those support and resistance areas every day and just scalp those, you can make a good living in this market. But we got a nice trend on the way down. We got a nice trend on the way up today, back up to these. So when you start trending back to these areas, look at those areas for targets and put your trend line on your chart and follow that, follow that trend, trade that trend till we get back to those areas again, and then see what happens. And you see what happened. We broke that trend. We had this upsloping trend line. We broke it, came back up, tested that high, failed, and we started selling off in the afternoon. And we continued to sell off into the close. Look what happened on the way down. This is more of a trading range, and it really is a strong trend. But you can see there's a nice trend channel here. Just copy that. I'll show you how I do that. I'll copy that line. I'll paste it back in there. I'll drag it down here, and look, price is held all down through that trend. You just place this line on here, and then you got a good idea of where prices are going to reverse on the low end. And you can see they held right here at this support area, and then with the trend, and you can see once they broke that line right there, it came back and tested that trend line, that downsloping one, to the tick, and then reversed and closed on its high. That was a great place to go long. I didn't have that one circled, but that was a great place to go long right there. So because it's a failed second entry short, and it's a reversal bar that closed on its high with all this stem. That's just a nice looking bar, and that would have been a great place to get long there for an easy scalp. But now that you see that, that was the main thing I wanted to show you today. These are the areas, you know, you always hear me talking about entering at key locations. I don't know why this line keeps disappearing. Let's move it over here and see if maybe that'll help. This is where it was, right across there, I believe. Yeah. For some reason it kept disappearing, but you're always hearing me talk about key entry points. And the key entry points are is the strong support down here, the strong resistance up here, and pullbacks to the EMA and trend line when the market's moving. And I consider this, even though this is still a range, this is price movement here. This is price movement. It's choppy and it's ugly, but it's still moving higher and constantly making higher highs and higher lows for the most part. So you're looking for your key entry points, which are two-legged pullbacks to the trend line and the EMA. And if these channels are bigger, it may be more than a two-legged pullback, but basically any pullback to the trend line or the EMA, and based on our rules that we teach, and if you don't have our manual, go pick it up. It's $100. Best buy you'll ever get for $100. I don't charge much, just enough to make it people that's, you know, it's just enough to, you got to be interested in it to want to buy it. But you get more information out of that $100 manual than most people will get out of these $1,000 trading courses. I promise you that. Just look at the feedback on my site. You know, what I sell is good stuff, and it's all based on price action. And I only charge a small price for it because I'm not in it to make money. I'm in it to help people learn how to trade. The money is made trading. It's not made in teaching. Although there are some people that make money teaching, that's not our goal. Our goal is to make money trading. So go get the manual and check it out and learn this stuff. But let me just talk about these key entry points. Back to key entry points. They're always at the resistance, support, and really you can just say resistance and support, because all these trend lines and channel lines that's support, and that's resistance on the way down. That's support. And if you copy this and drag it up here, this is resistance up here. And that's all that's all a trend line is support, resistance. It's just on an angle for the trend. And don't ask me why this works. Don't ask me, you know, I'm sure there's some scientific reason that somebody could tell you that this stuff works, and I guess it's enough traders that understand it that are watching it, or maybe it's the natural laws of price action. I honestly cannot tell you, but I can tell you it works. And if you're trying to enter, this is what you need to be looking for. Get your trend line on there and wait for this bounce off the trend line right here, right here. Your two-legged pullbacks to the EMA, right here, right here, right here. Those are key entry points. Look what happened every time we touched one of those. Look at that move down. Then it got choppy. But then when we touched it, look at that move down. Then it got choppy on the pullback. And look, these are all two-legged pullbacks. One leg up, pullback, second leg up. One leg up, pullback, second leg up. One leg up, pullback, second leg up. Two-legged corrections to the trend line or the EMA are a gold mine in a trending market. We make more money off those trades than anything else. And all it is prices pull back to resistance or pull back to support in this case, and look going up. This right here is a two-legged, one leg back, move up, second leg back. Even though that's not as clear and pretty as maybe this one is, that's still a two-legged pullback to the trend line. And you got your trend line off these first couple of points here, and even if you drew it excuse me, even if you drew it like that, uh, you still got the trend line. You always draw it off the first couple of swings, but when sometimes sometimes you draw it right off the stems. Usually I draw it right off the stems, and you're going to get your best trend line. But sometimes on these reversals, you'll get some stems in there, and then you'll notice it starts to hold on the way up, and you can kind of see that. And once you get a stem that's a little lower, if it's only a little bit like that, you might adjust it just a little, and then you can see that's where this one turns. So these lines, you don't have to get them just right. If you can get them general, in the general area, they'll still tell you everything you need to know. And so we're looking to enter at key points. Look what happened. I mean, if you didn't enter at the EMA here every time, if you entered anywhere else, pretty much, if you're looking to enter up here, look what happens. You get caught just as soon as you get long, it turns, and then you get stopped out, and then it turns right back up again. And that's what happens to people. And even this one, this is another two-legged pullback to the EMA. Here's the new high. There's one leg back. There's your first entry long. Pull back, second entry long, and look, that was an easy trade, even though it didn't get back to the trend line. It's just two bounces off the EMA. The EMA is really just like a trend line. This is a 21-bar EMA for those of you that aren't familiar with our work, and it acts like a it's not a static like this type of trend line. It's more of a moving trend line, but it still tends to hold prices. If most of your prices are below the EMA, like right down through here, then you need to be looking for shorts. Now, once it gets right in here, and excuse me, I'm sorry, it's gotten hot in here, and I get to talking, and my throat gets to itching, and I get to coughing, so I apologize for the throat issues that I've had. I was just about over these during the holidays when I was rested, and I've got to working hard and gotten back to the regular thing, and the weather's gotten crazy around here again, and it's come right back again. But anyway, this just, if you knew where if you got your trend lines right out of the gate, and once you get two or three tests of it, like right up through here, then you know it's valid. And then this is close enough right here to know it's valid. And then by this time it bounces again, you know it's valid. And sure, eventually you're going to buy one that falls. But let me show you something. Let me show you something right here. As you can see, these first few pullbacks, when they pulled back, they were pretty strong going out of there. But look what happened right here. Most of you, what'll happen is most people will watch it all the way up and deny that it's going up. And then right here is when they'll finally decide to get in. They'll finally say, I can't watch this do this anymore. And they'll get in right here, and then look what happens. It turns off, and they get stopped out. And somebody else inevitably send me an email and say, what happened on this trade? Well, you're too late into the trend. Doesn't mean that prices won't go up. But here's your clue to know not to get in right here. You hear me talk about congestion. If there's congestion going on, like look at these trades. Prices didn't hang around here. When this pulled back, it rocketed out of here and it went straight on up. Same thing here. It didn't hang around down in here. It rocketed on up. It pulled back, but then it shot on up again. That's a second entry long right there. But look what happened right here. This pullback, it started getting in congestion. And this is a second entry long, and it was still a good trade. I wouldn't have taken this trade. I didn't take this trade. I wasn't trading by this time. But I wouldn't have taken this trade because you had to enter above all these dojis. If you took it, it's okay because it is a second entry long. It's a failed second entry short. So there's a lot of reasons that to take this trade. It's okay. We're not quite to the resistance area. But because we're this far away from the EMA or the trend line down here, and because we're too close to the upper side, I wouldn't have taken this trade because the odds are when it gets up here, it's going to turn and sell off again. And that's what happened. But there was still plenty of room to make a couple of points right there. An easy scalp anyway, which is our minimum expectation is a scalp. But look right here. Let me back out where you can see this real well. I just want you to see this. But look at all that overlap. Look at those dojis. Anytime you get three or more bars overlapping and at least one of them's a doji, if you enter, the odds are you're probably going to get trapped. And it gets confusing because a lot of people will look at this and think this is congestion. This is not congestion. Look, down here, this rocketed out of here. It didn't hang around. But right here, you got to wait for a bullish bar to enter or a tiny doji at the very bottom. Well, there's no bullish bar here until this. You could have assumed this was semi-bullish, but if you had your order there, you never got triggered. And then by the time this one formed, then you got 3 overlapping bars, and a couple of them are dojis. You really got 1, 2, 3, 4 overlapping bars, 5, 6. You really got more than that. But if you're just looking, even if you're just looking down here, there's your 3 overlapping bars. But you still never got triggered. So by the time you got out to here, you don't want to take that trade. Okay, sorry about that. I had a little slight interruption. Somebody was at the door of my office here. But anyway, by the time you got out to here, that was enough reason not to go long. And you see what happened. Prices broke higher. All it did was trap everybody and sold off. And it got down here, and it's got everybody loaded up to the short side. And you got the same thing right here. Look at all that overlap. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars. At least one of them's a doji. It's a double bottom, really a triple bottom. And I guarantee you, there's probably some people be watching this video that went short right there today. And all that is a short trap. They're just waiting. They're breaking prices down there, and then they immediately quit selling, and they start buying, and look what happened. Look at that move. All that is a stop run all the way back up to test the resistance area again. So hopefully you see this. Hopefully as we continue to talk about this stuff, if you back out of here, you can see the bigger range, and you can see that was just the range, the very identical range from yesterday. And you got to kind of ignore this. You can't ignore this completely when it comes to your trend lines and things like that. But as far as support resistance, you can almost ignore it because it happens during the overnight, just like down here. And you see quickly after breaking through, though, prices, they run it right back into the range. And by the time the regular market's going again, the range is holding just like it did yesterday. So learn to find your trend lines. They're generally drawn off the first couple of swings. This one you probably would have originally, let me just show you this and then we're going to call it a day. You probably would have originally drawn this one up here, but you can see it's not a good, usually your best trends are a 45-degree angle. This one's a little steep, but this one's a little flat. So you're usually looking for your best ones down along there. So you could have drawn it like that and you still would have got the same purpose, because all of these were two-legged pullbacks to the EMA. Even if you take this trend line off down here, you can see those were still easy to spot. They're two-legged pullbacks to the EMA in a market that's moving pretty good to the downside. And so regardless of how you drew this, you probably could have looked at it like that right there, and then you would have got it just off the closes, and then it even looks better. And but a lot of times your downtrend didn't really start till right there. And then if you draw it like that, that's how I got my trend line. And you can't always do it that way, but that's why you want to try drawing your trend lines. Just check them a couple different ways and recheck them as you're going, because sometimes even I get them wrong. Yesterday I got a trend line wrong. It was coming off this low. I had it too steep. I drew it off the first 2 swings, which will get you in the right place 99% of the time. But it wasn't, and I was wrong. And then I had one nice losing trade yesterday because I drew my trend line in the wrong place. So it's easy to get fooled, but just keep checking your trend lines. My problem is I don't always recheck them often enough because I get overconfident because I think I know how to read price action. I think I'm a pro, but I still make mistakes because I don't double check myself and I get sloppy. And coming off the holidays, I was definitely sloppy this week. I didn't trade nearly as well as I usually do. And, I didn't make as much money. And, I had some losers in there. And that's what's going to happen to you. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. It's Friday. I hope you had a good week. Hopefully you weren't like me and you're sloppy from being gone, and you kind of lose your edge. You get from being gone for a little while. But hopefully you weren't as bad as me. And hopefully you'll have a better week next week. But this is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and I will see you next time.